The metal shards sliced through the air, missing Ethan Black's face by millimeters as he jerked his head back. The crowd of blue-skinned Azavians jeered, their alien voices creating a discordant chorus that echoed off the metal walls of the arena's holding pen. Blood trickled from a cut on his cheek, mixing with sweat as he struggled against the restraints binding his wrists. "Too slow, human," taunted Princess Celine, her voice amplified to an unnatural volume by her gleaming armor. The blue glow pulsing from the intricate metalwork matched her sapphire skin, making her seem like a living weapon. Her vertical pupils narrowed with satisfaction at his predicament. Ethan spat blood onto the metal floor. "If you're going to kill me, just get it over with." The princess laughed, the sound booming through the chamber. "Kill you? That would be too quick, too merciful." She gestured dramatically to the viewing screens, where footage played of massive blue-furred predators tearing apart training dummies. "The Vreks haven't fed in days. They hunger for sport." The gathered Xavian nobles murmured with anticipation, their ceremonial garb glittering under the harsh lights. To them, this was entertainment, watching a captured human soldier face certain death in their sacred labyrinth. "You're the first human to experience our maze of trials," Celine continued, circling him like a predator herself. "Your coalition comrades escaped our ambush, but you'll serve as an example of what happens to those who encroach on Xavian territory." A massive door slid open behind her, revealing a cargo bay where a caged beast snarled and rattled the bars. The creature resembled a massive wolf crossed with a panther, its 6 muscular legs ending in curved claws that could disembowel a man with one swipe. Its fur rippled in shades of dark blue, almost metallic in the light. As the princess approached the cage, Ethan noticed something peculiar. The beast's aggressive posture changed subtly, its ears flicking toward Celine whenever she spoke. Each time her amplified voice boomed, the creature's muscles relaxed slightly, as if affected by the sound itself. The voice modulator, Ethan realized, eyes narrowing as he studied her armor. There, at the junction of her throat and collar, sat a small device pulsing with the same blue energy as the rest of her suit. That had to be it, the control mechanism. "The human notices something," Celine said, her smirk widening as she misinterpreted his focus. "Yes, they are magnificent, aren't they? The apex predators of our world. Impossible to tame, except by me." The ship shuddered as it began descent toward the planet's surface. Through a viewport, Ethan caught glimpses of a savage landscape, massive stone formations creating a complex maze under a purple sky. His mind raced, calculating odds, looking for weakness, for opportunity. Special Forces training had prepared him for captivity, for torture, but not for trial by alien monster. "Your maze doesn't scare me," he said, forcing confidence into his voice despite the desperate situation. "It should," Celine replied, leaning close enough that he could smell the strange spice of her breath. "No one survives the labyrinth, but to make things sporting, I'll give you this." She tossed a jagged piece of metal, part of a broken blade, onto the floor near his feet. The guards cut his restraints, though 4 energy weapons remained trained on his head. "When we land, you'll have a 5-minute head start. After that, I release the Vreks." Her amplified laughter bounced off the walls. "Run well, human. Your death feeds our glory." The first rays of red sunlight sliced between the towering stone walls as Ethan sprinted through the maze. His 5 minutes had started the moment the guards shoved him through the entrance, sealing it behind him with an ominous thud. Blood pounded in his ears, keeping time with his footfalls on the smooth stone floor. "Left, right, then another right," he muttered, mentally mapping the twisting passages. Coalition training had included maze navigation drills, though nothing on this scale. The stone walls rose 30 feet high, with strange vines creeping up their sides. Some passages were wide enough for 3 men to walk abreast. Others forced him to turn sideways to squeeze through. Above, hovering drones with camera lenses tracked his progress, broadcasting his desperate flight to the Xavian elite. Occasionally, Princess Celine's amplified voice boomed across the labyrinth, mocking his efforts. "Running like prey, Earth soldier. How disappointing. I expected more fight from your species." At an intersection, Ethan paused, listening. The distant howl of the Vreks echoed through the maze. They'd been released. No time to rest. He chose a narrow path, reasoning the tighter spaces might slow the six-legged predators. The strange vegetation grew thicker in this section, offering potential cover. Climbing plants with purple leaves clung to the walls, while luminescent fungi sprouted from cracks in the stone. He broke off a sturdy vine, testing its strength before wrapping one end around his hand and tying the other to his metal shard, creating a makeshift slashing weapon with better reach. The howls grew closer, 2 Vreks at least approaching from different directions. Ethan glanced up at the walls. Too smooth to climb without proper equipment, he needed a defensive position. A small clearing opened ahead, with a shallow pool of water fed by moisture trickling down the stone. 3 passages led away from the space, perfect for an ambush, but whether he would be the hunter or hunted remained to be seen. Ethan waded into the pool, disturbing the water to leave obvious tracks, then doubled back, climbing into the tangled vines near the entrance. There he waited, breath controlled, muscles tense. The first Vrex arrived moments later, its massive form moving with surprising stealth despite its size. It sniffed the disturbed water, following Ethan's scent to the pool's edge. When it turned to investigate one of the other passages, Ethan struck. He dropped from the vines directly onto the creature's back, driving his metal shard into the base of its skull. The Vrex roared in pain and fury, bucking wildly as it tried to dislodge him. Ethan clung to its thick fur, twisting the blade deeper as they crashed against the stone walls. "Impressive, human!" Celine's voice boomed from above, where her hover platform now positioned her to view the struggle. "But futile!" The Vrex finally threw him off, sending him crashing into the pool. The water cushioned his fall, but the impact still knocked the breath from his lungs. The wounded predator stalked toward him, blood matting its blue fur, yellow eyes burning with rage. Before it could pounce, a second Vrex burst into the clearing, distracted by the commotion. The 2 beasts immediately turned on each other, territorial instincts overriding their hunting drive. They clashed in a fury of teeth and claws, buying Ethan precious seconds to escape through one of the side passages. "Entertaining," Celine called after him, "but your luck won't last." Ethan ran blindly, his focus on putting distance between himself and the fighting predators. Blood dripped from cuts on his arms where the Vrex's claws had caught him. His lungs burned, his legs grew heavy, but fear and adrenaline pushed him forward. The passageway suddenly ended at a sheer wall. Dead end. Ethan turned to retrace his steps, but a low growl froze him in place. A third Vrex, larger than the others, blocked his escape. Its muscles tensed, preparing to spring. "End of the line, human," Celine gloated, her hover platform positioning above the passage. "Though I must admit, you've lasted longer than I expected." The ground suddenly shook beneath them. A deep rumble grew into a roar as an explosion tore through a nearby section of the maze. The Vrex faltered, its hunting focus disrupted by the unexpected threat. Debris rained down, one large chunk striking Celine's platform, sending it lurching dangerously. "What's happening?" she demanded, her amplified voice cracking with alarm. "This is not part of the trial." Another explosion, closer this time, sent a shock wave through the passage. The Vrex backed away, conflicted between its hunting instinct and self-preservation. Seeing his chance, Ethan charged, ducking under the creature's startled swipe and sprinting past it. More explosions followed in quick succession, systematic and deliberate. Someone was destroying the maze, and everyone in it. Through the dust and smoke, Ethan spotted Celine's damaged platform drifting lower, its stabilizers failing. The princess clung to the railing, her arrogance replaced by fear as her safe vantage point became a potential death trap. Calculating angles and timing like the trained soldier he was, Ethan watched as the platform drifted near a partially collapsed wall. When it came within 15 feet of the ground, he made his move. 3 quick steps up the rubble, a powerful leap, and his hands caught the edge of the platform. Muscles straining, he pulled himself up and over the railing. Celine stumbled back, drawing a ceremonial dagger from her belt. "Stay back," she hissed, slashing at him with surprising skill. Ethan dodged, feeling the blade slice through his tattered uniform. He kicked out, connecting with her knee. She staggered but didn't fall, slashing again with desperate strength. "Your maze is coming down around us," Ethan said, circling her on the unstable platform. "Someone wants us both dead." "Lies!" she spat, though doubt crept into her voice as another explosion shook the maze. closer than the last. Ethan feinted left, then lunged right, grabbing her wrist as she slashed again. They grappled, her alien strength nearly matching his combat training. During the struggle, his eyes remained fixed on the voice modulator at her throat, the key to controlling the Vrex. With a sudden twist, he broke her grip, simultaneously driving his elbow into her solar plexus. As she doubled over, he grabbed the modulator, tearing it free with a spray of sparks and broken components. "No!" Celine's cry came out as a normal voice, startlingly soft after the mechanical amplification. Below them, the Vrex that had been stalking Ethan froze, its head tilting in confusion at the sudden change. Then it began to howl, a bone-chilling sound of rage no longer tempered by control. Other howls answered from throughout the maze, the pack connection amplifying their collective fury. The platform lurched violently as another explosion tore through a nearby wall. Celine lost her footing, tumbling toward the edge. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her back from certain death. "Why would you?" she began, confusion replacing fear. "No time!" Ethan cut her off, pointing to where the massive Vrex had leaped onto a pile of rubble, preparing to jump to the platform. "We need to move!" The damaged hover platform drifted near another section of wall. "Jump!" Ethan commanded, shoving Celine toward the gap. She hesitated only briefly before leaping across, her natural agility carrying her safely to the stone surface. Ethan followed just as the Vrex landed on the platform, its weight causing the damaged structure to finally give way. The beast and platform crashed to the ground in a tangle of metal and fury. "This way," Ethan said, grabbing Celine's arm again and pulling her along the top of the wall. Her armor, designed for ceremonial display rather than combat, had been damaged in the fall. Parts of it broke away as they ran, leaving her in a lighter undersuit that allowed greater movement. "Why save me?" she asked as they scrambled down the other side of the wall, away from the rampaging Vrex. "Because someone's trying to kill us both," Ethan replied grimly, "and I want answers before I die." They fled through the disintegrating maze, dust filling their lungs, debris raining down around them. The systematic explosions continued, methodically destroying the labyrinth section by section. "Who would do this?" Celine asked between labored breaths, unused to physical exertion without her power-enhancing armor. "Someone who wants you dead and humans blamed," Ethan suggested, pulling her down as a stone block crashed where they'd been standing seconds before. "The question is why?" A howl cut through the chaos, Vrex on the hunt, their control mechanisms no longer functioning. Ethan pulled Celine into a narrow crack between two massive stones as a pack of 3 predators raced past, their fur covered in dust and blood. "The beasts are hunting in packs now," he whispered. "Without your voice control, they've reverted to natural behaviors." Celine nodded grimly. "We designed the maze to prevent that, keeping them isolated from each other." She winced as a particularly violent explosion shook their hiding place. These charges must have been pre-planted. This was planned. By whom? Her eyes narrowed in sudden understanding. "General Xavier, my military advisor. He's been pushing for war with your coalition. This would be perfect. The princess killed by humans who infiltrated the maze. Except I was already your prisoner," Ethan pointed out. "A detail easily changed in the official record," Celine said bitterly. "Xavier controls the information channels." Another explosion, closer this time, forced them from their hiding place. They sprinted down a corridor that was rapidly filling with smoke and dust. Behind them, the howls of Vrex grew louder. They were being hunted again. "There!" Ethan pointed to a small opening near the ground, half hidden by fallen debris. "Some kind of drainage tunnel." They squeezed through the narrow space, finding themselves in a maintenance passage built beneath the main maze. The air was damp but clearer, with bioluminescent fungi providing enough light to navigate by. "These tunnels run throughout the complex," Celine explained, moving with more confidence now, "for the keepers to move without disturbing the trials. Or to plant explosives without being seen," Ethan added darkly. A deep growl froze them in place. Ahead, a massive Vrex blocked the tunnel, its yellow eyes gleaming in the dim light. It was the same large one that had nearly caught Ethan earlier, recognizable by a distinctive scar across its muzzle. "Don't move," Celine whispered, reaching instinctively for her voice modulator before remembering it was gone. The Vrex advanced slowly, its 6 legs moving with predatory grace despite the confined space. Ethan raised his metal shard, knowing it would offer little protection against the creature's power. To their shock, the Vrex stopped a few feet away, sniffing the air cautiously. It growled again, but the sound seemed different. Less threatening, more questioning. "It's not attacking," Ethan whispered, hardly daring to breathe. The Vrex suddenly turned its head, ears pricking at a sound from further down the tunnel. The howls of its packmates echoed toward them, growing louder. With startling decisiveness, the scarred Vrex moved past Ethan and Celine, positioning itself between them and the approaching pack. When the first of the other predators appeared, the large Vrex roared a challenge, its posture unmistakably protective. "It's defending us," Celine said in disbelief. The approaching Vrex hesitated, confused by their packmates' behavior. The scarred one charged, driving them back down the tunnel with snaps and growls. "I don't understand," Celine murmured. "They're not supposed to form bonds with other species." "Maybe this one's different," Ethan suggested, watching the scarred Vrex return from its successful defense. "Or maybe it recognizes that we're all in danger from the explosions." The Vrex nudged Ethan's hand with its massive head, then turned and padded further down the tunnel, looking back expectantly. "I think it wants us to follow," Ethan said, tentatively taking a step forward. "You trust this beast?" Celine asked skeptically. "More than I trust the people trying to blow us up," Ethan replied. "Besides, it just saved our lives." The Vrex, which Ethan had mentally dubbed Blue for its deep sapphire fur, led them through a maze of maintenance tunnels, seemingly familiar with the layout. Occasionally it would stop, growling softly, then choose a different path, as if sensing danger ahead. "These tunnels should lead to an exit on the south side," Celine said as they navigated the dark passages. "If it hasn't been destroyed yet." A new sound cut through the distant rumble of explosions. Voices, harsh and commanding, speaking in the Xavian language. Blue growled, fur bristling as he positioned himself protectively in front of Ethan and Celine. "Mercenaries," Celine translated, her face hardening. "Xavier's private force. They're searching for survivors." "How many?" "4, maybe 5, armed with crossbows." Ethan assessed their options quickly. "We can't outrun them in these tunnels. We need to set a trap." The passage widened slightly ahead, opening into a small maintenance hub with equipment racks and control panels. Ethan scanned the space, his special forces training identifying advantages and weaknesses. "There," he pointed to a heavy metal panel leaning against one wall. "We can use that as a shield, and those pipes might work as spears if we can break them loose." Working quickly, they prepared their ambush. Celine, despite her royal upbringing, proved surprisingly capable, following Ethan's instructions without complaint. Blue seemed to understand their plan, positioning himself in shadows where he could spring on unsuspecting attackers. The mercenaries' voices grew louder, their lights sweeping the tunnel ahead. Ethan and Celine pressed against the wall behind their makeshift shield, improvised weapons ready. The first mercenary entered the hub, crossbow raised. He swept his light across the space, missing the hidden defenders. As he signaled the all clear to his companions, Ethan struck. He hurled a heavy wrench across the room, the clang drawing the mercenaries' attention away from their position. As the Xavian turned, Blue lunged from his hiding place, massive jaws clamping around the mercenary's arm. The crossbow fired harmlessly into the ceiling as the man screamed. The other mercenaries rushed forward, firing bolts that bounced off the metal shield Ethan had positioned. Celine thrust her makeshift spear through a gap, catching one attacker in the leg. Chaos erupted in the confined space. Blue fought like a demon, his massive form knocking mercenaries off their feet while Ethan engaged the leader in hand-to-hand combat. The mercenaries' superior strength was matched by Ethan's combat training, each blow countered and returned with precision. A crossbow bolt whistled past Ethan's ear, embedding itself in the wall behind him. He grabbed the mercenary's arm, twisting until the weapon clattered to the floor, then delivered a knockout blow to the alien's temple. "Ethan!" Celine's warning came just in time. He ducked as another bolt flew where his head had been. The princess had seized a fallen crossbow and returned fire, her shot taking the last mercenary in the shoulder. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. 4 mercenaries lay unconscious or wounded, their weapons now in the hands of their intended victims. "You fight well for a human," Celine remarked, examining a crossbow with practiced ease that suggested her royal education had included martial training. "And you fight well for a princess," Ethan replied, checking the fallen mercenaries for anything useful. He found a portable scanner and communication device, which he tossed to Celine. "Can you access their communications?" She nodded, fingers working the alien technology. "Xavier's ordered all units to find and eliminate any survivors, particularly me." A bitter smile crossed her face. "It seems I've become inconvenient to his plans." "What plans exactly?" Celine's expression darkened. "War with your coalition. Xavier controls our military-industrial complex. Peace threatens his power and profits." She looked up from the device. "This confirms it. The explosives were planted weeks ago. This whole trap was intended for me. And I was just a convenient scapegoat," Ethan concluded grimly. "The human assassin who killed the princess." Blue growled, nudging one of the unconscious mercenaries with his muzzle, before looking toward a passage they hadn't yet explored. "More coming?" Ethan asked, understanding the Vrex's warning. Blue's ears flattened in confirmation. Celine checked the scanner, her eyes widening. "A large force approaching from multiple directions. We're being surrounded." Ethan quickly gathered the remaining crossbows and bolts. "Then we need to find that exit now." The maintenance tunnels grew narrower as Blue led them deeper into the complex. The air turned cooler, damper, suggesting they were heading underground rather than toward an exit. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Celine asked, her royal composure cracking slightly as claustrophobia set in. Blue growled softly in what almost seemed like reassurance, continuing forward without hesitation. "I trust him," Ethan said simply. "He hasn't steered us wrong yet." The passage eventually opened into a natural cavern where an underground river cut through the rock, disappearing into darkness. Glowing fungi clung to the walls, casting enough light to reveal multiple tunnel entrances branching from the main chamber. "The labyrinth was built over a cave system," Celine explained, kneeling to examine the fast-flowing water. "These rivers eventually reach the surface miles from here. Can we follow it out?" She shook her head. "Too dangerous. The currents are unpredictable, and there are underwater passages that could trap us." Blue moved to a tunnel entrance on the far side of the cavern, growling impatiently for them to follow. "Our guide seems to have a preference," Ethan observed, moving to join the Vrex. As they ventured deeper into the natural caves, the sounds of the collapsing maze faded, replaced by the drip of water and the occasional echo of their footsteps. The path sloped gradually upward, winding through formations of crystal that caught the bioluminescent light and created dreamlike patterns on the walls. "We're heading toward the surface," Celine confirmed, checking the mercenaries' scanner. "But so are Xavier's forces. They're converging on all known exits." "Then we need to find an unknown one," Ethan replied, studying Blue's confident movements. "I think that's exactly what our friend is doing." The Vrex led them through a series of increasingly narrow passages, some requiring them to crawl on hands and knees. Ethan went first, then Celine, with Blue bringing up the rear, his massive form somehow squeezing through spaces that seemed too small for his bulk. "He's done this before," Celine realized. "This is how he survived in the maze for so long, using these hidden passages the keepers didn't know about." After what felt like hours of navigating the twisting caves, they reached what appeared to be a dead end, a solid wall of rock blocking their path. Blue scratched at the base, whining softly. "Great," Celine muttered. "Now what?" Ethan examined the wall closely, running his hands over the rough surface. Near the top, where the cave ceiling sloped down to meet the barrier, he felt a different texture. Not natural stone, but something manufactured. "It's camouflaged," he said excitedly, pressing different sections until something clicked. A portion of the wall swung outward, revealing starlight and fresh air beyond. They emerged onto a forested hillside well away from the maze complex, which was now only a distant glow of fires and destruction on the horizon. The three moons of the Xavian world cast silvery light across a landscape of strange, twisted trees and flowering vines. "We made it," Celine said, relief evident in her voice as she shed the last pieces of her damaged ceremonial armor. "But we're still not safe. Xavier will have patrols searching once he realizes the maze didn't kill us." Ethan scanned their surroundings, military training automatically identifying defensive positions and escape routes. We need to find shelter, then contact your loyalists. You must have some? Celine nodded grimly. Few I would trust with my life. But yes, Captain Nara of my personal guard would die before betraying me. She examined the mercenaries' communication device. But this is locked to Xavier's frequencies. We need different equipment. Blue suddenly tensed, fur bristling as he stared into the forest. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Warning, not threat. Company, Ethan whispered, pulling Celine behind a massive fallen trunk as lights appeared through the trees. A patrol craft moved slowly above the canopy, its searchlights sweeping the forest floor. It passed overhead, then circled back, hovering over a clearing nearby. They're doing a grid search, Ethan said. Systematic and thorough. We can't stay here. Blue nudged Ethan's leg, then slipped silently into the underbrush, looking back expectantly. I think he wants us to follow again, Celine said. The Vrex led them through the alien forest with surprising stealth for his size, choosing paths that minimized their tracks and kept them under the densest parts of the canopy. Whenever the patrol craft approached, Blue would guide them to cover, his acute senses detecting the danger before either human or Xavian could. After several hours of this cautious progress, they reached a small clearing where a strange structure stood. A weathered stone building nearly consumed by vegetation, its design ancient and unlike the modern Xavian architecture Ethan had observed. A keeper's outpost, Celine identified, approaching the moss-covered walls, from the early days of the labyrinth, when it was still used for its original purpose. Which was? Ethan asked, checking the perimeter for signs of recent activity. Trial by combat between champions, she replied, pushing open a heavy stone door that groaned on ancient hinges. A way to settle disputes without full-scale war. The interior was a single room, dusty but intact, with stone furniture and niches in the walls that might once have held weapons or supplies. Blue entered cautiously, sniffing each corner before settling near the entrance, positioning himself to watch both the interior and the forest beyond. It seems our friend has appointed himself guardian, Ethan observed, gathering dried vegetation to create crude bedding. Celine sank onto a stone bench, exhaustion finally overwhelming her royal composure. Why did you really save me? She asked abruptly. On the platform, you could have let me fall. Ethan continued his work for a moment before answering. Killing you wouldn't have helped me escape, and someone who'd murder their own princess to start a war needs to be stopped. So practical, she said with a hint of bitterness. Just survival and mission. Isn't that what drives you? Ethan countered, meeting her alien eyes. Survival of your position? Your power? She looked away first. I was wrong about the maze, about using it for entertainment. Xavier convinced me it would strengthen my position, show my power to potential usurpers. Her fists clenched. I was a fool. You were manipulated, Ethan corrected, surprising himself with the defense, by someone who understood your vulnerabilities. A ruler cannot afford vulnerability, she said sharply. Everyone has vulnerabilities, princess. The strong acknowledge them. The weak pretend they don't exist. Blue growled softly from his position by the door, ears pricking forward at some sound beyond human perception. Something's coming, Ethan whispered, grabbing a crossbow. They positioned themselves on either side of the doorway, weapons ready. Blue remained surprisingly calm, his posture alert but not aggressive. The sound of repulsor engines grew louder, then cut off nearby. Light footsteps approached the outpost, too deliberate for a search party. Princess Celine, a female voice called softly. By the blood of your ancestors, I serve the true crown. Celine's breath caught. Captain Nara, she whispered, hope flooding her face. She moved toward the door, but Ethan caught her arm. It could be a trap, he warned. That oath cannot be counterfeited, she replied firmly. It binds the speaker's life to their word. She stepped into the doorway, where moonlight illuminated her clearly. Captain, your presence is unexpected. A Xavian female in the uniform of the Royal Guard emerged from the shadows, dropping immediately to one knee. Highness, we received your emergency beacon when your armor was damaged. We've been searching since the explosion. Emergency beacon? Ethan questioned. Built into my ceremonial armor, Celine explained. Activated if the suit is compromised. I didn't think it had survived the damage. Captain Nara rose, her gaze shifting warily between Celine, Ethan, and Blue. To her credit, she showed minimal reaction to the massive predator standing protectively beside the human. The human is an ally, Celine stated firmly, as is the Vrex, strangely enough. Nara nodded once, accepting the bizarre situation with the pragmatism of a professional soldier. We must hurry, Highness. Xavier has declared you dead and blamed coalition forces. He's mobilizing the fleet for an attack on human outposts in the Rigel system. War, Ethan said grimly, just as you suspected. How many loyal forces remain? Celine demanded. Your personal guard and several military commanders who questioned Xavier's evidence, Nara replied, were scattered, in hiding, but ready to act on your command. And transport? A scout craft, hidden 2 kilometers north. It can get us to the Royal Bunker in the Crimson Mountains, where we can access emergency command systems. Then we move now, Celine decided. Every minute brings Xavier closer to his war. The scout craft skimmed low over the landscape, its stealth systems active to avoid detection by Xavier's patrols. The small cabin was cramped with 4 occupants, especially given Blue's massive size, but the Vrex had settled with surprising docility near Ethan's feet. Captain Nara piloted with the precision of elite training, using terrain features to mask their approach to the mountain range that dominated the northern continent. The red stone peaks, streaked with deposits of rare minerals, glowed like embers in the light of the rising sun. The bunker was built during the last succession war, Nara explained, as they navigated a narrow pass, designed to withstand orbital bombardment and remain self-sufficient for years if necessary. And Xavier doesn't know about it? Ethan asked skeptically. He knows it exists, but not its exact location, Celine replied. The coordinates are passed orally from monarch to heir, never recorded. The entrance was a masterpiece of natural camouflage, a vertical crevice in the mountainside, indistinguishable from dozens of similar formations nearby. Only when they were meters away did Ethan spot the subtle signs of construction. The massive doors, designed to withstand planetary bombardment, opened after Celine placed her palm on an ancient scanner built into the rock face. Royal DNA, she explained at Ethan's questioning look. The ultimate security system. The bunker's interior was surprisingly well preserved, a combination of advanced technology and simple, durable design. Living quarters, medical facilities, and most importantly, a command center with communications equipment that bypassed the regular planetary networks. While Nara treated Celine's wounds properly with the bunker's medical supplies, Ethan and Blue explored the facility, ensuring they were truly alone. The layout was defensive and practical, with multiple escape routes and self-contained life support systems. Your ancestors thought of everything, Ethan commented when they regrouped in the command center. They lived in violent times, Celine replied, her shoulder now properly bandaged. Civil war was common, survival required planning. She approached the main console where symbols in the Xavian language glowed with soft blue light. With practiced movements, she activated the system, entering codes that had been passed down through generations of royalty. The planetary defense grid is under Xavier's control, she reported after scanning the information. But he doesn't know about this override. Her fingers danced across the controls, inputting a complex sequence. Done. A single ship can now leave the atmosphere without triggering alarms. Now we need a ship, Ethan said. Nara stepped forward. There's a hangar built into the mountain, Highness. According to the manifest, it should contain an old royal transport. Perfect, Celine said. But before we leave, I need to send a message to all loyal Xavians. She activated the bunker's broadcast system, which would transmit on frequencies known only to the royal family and their closest allies. For a moment she hesitated, the weight of leadership visible in the set of her shoulders. Then she straightened, her voice finding strength. People of Xavia, this is Princess Celine. I speak to you from a secure location. The reports of my death are false, a deception created by General Xavier to justify war against the Earth Coalition. He orchestrated the attack on the Labyrinth of Trials, attempting to kill me and blame humans for the destruction. She glanced at Ethan before continuing. I was saved by a human soldier, Ethan Black, who demonstrated the honor and courage that Xavier claims his species lacks. Together, we have uncovered evidence of Xavier's treachery. He seeks not the glory of Xavier, but personal power through conflict. Her voice grew stronger with each word, royal authority replacing the uncertainty of the hunted fugitive. I call upon all loyal soldiers and citizens to resist Xavier's orders. Do not fire upon Earth vessels. The true enemy is not the humans, but those who would sacrifice peace for ambition. She entered a series of codes. I have transmitted proof of Xavier's crimes to all command vessels. By royal decree, I strip him of all rank and authority. With a final command, she ended the transmission. It's done, she said quietly. Now we see who remains loyal. And in the meantime, we get to the royal transport, Ethan said, before Xavier's forces tracked the transmission. The royal transport was ancient by modern standards, its design reminiscent of earlier Xavier aesthetics. But the diagnostic scan confirmed it was functional. The small craft was designed for emergency evacuation, not combat, but its stealth capabilities remained impressive. Xavier's flagship has established orbit above the capital, Nara reported as they prepared for launch. He's addressing the Planetary Council, officially declaring war on the Coalition. Then we target the flagship, Celine decided. Once I appear before the Council, Xavier's deception will be exposed. It's heavily defended, Ethan warned. How do we approach without being shot down? Celine's lips curved in the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. We don't approach. We crash right through the front door. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. The flagship's automated systems would recognize a royal transport and grant emergency access before manual override was possible. They would fly directly into the docking bay, where Celine could use internal systems to reach the council chambers. The transport shot from the mountain hangar like a bullet from a gun, climbing rapidly toward the upper atmosphere. Alarms blared almost immediately. We've been spotted, Nara reported. Intercept craft launching from the nearest military base. Can we outrun them? Ethan asked, strapping himself into the weapons console. We have a head start, Celine replied, pushing the transport to its limits. And my override should prevent the automated defense systems from targeting us. Blue paced anxiously as the craft broke through the atmosphere, stars replacing the purple-tinged sky of the Xavian world. The Vrex had never been off-planet. This would be as foreign to him as the maze had been to Ethan. It's all right, Ethan assured the massive predator, placing a hand on Blue's flank. Just another kind of cave. The transport shuddered as the first shots from their pursuers passed harmlessly to port. Warning fire rather than a serious attempt to destroy them. They're uncertain, Celine realized. My broadcast has created doubt. They don't want to fire on their princess. Ethan returned fire with the transport's defensive weapons, targeting engines and weapon systems rather than critical life support. Two pursuers broke off after taking minor damage, unwilling to risk killing royalty. The third pressed on, more determined or more loyal to the general. Xavier's flagship dead ahead, Nara announced tensely. Its weapon systems are active. The massive vessel dominated the view screen, a kilometer-long warship bristling with weapon emplacements and surrounded by fighter craft. It had positioned itself to intercept their projected course to the nearest neutral space. We can't fight that, Ethan said grimly. We don't have to, Celine replied, her focus absolute as she altered course, heading directly toward the flagship at maximum speed. A hit to their aft section sent them tumbling briefly before Celine regained control. Warning lights flashed across the console, indicating damage to the propulsion system. We've lost 30% thrust capacity, she reported, but we'll make it. The flagship loomed larger, its massive form blocking out the stars behind it. Defense turrets tracked their approach but held fire, uncertain of their intentions or unwilling to risk hitting the flagship itself. Transmitting royal emergency codes, Celine announced as they neared the docking bay. Prepare for rapid entry. The massive doors began to open automatically, responding to the royal codes. Celine guided their damaged transport through the narrowing gap, scraping the hull in her haste. They crashed more than landed on the docking bay floor, skidding across the polished surface before coming to rest against a cargo container. Alarms blared throughout the bay as atmosphere was restored and security protocols activated. 2 minutes before this place is swarming with Xavier's troops, Nara warned, checking her weapons. The first security team arrived as they exited the transport, weapons raised. Celine stepped forward, her royal authority fully restored now that she stood on her flagship. "Hold your fire," she commanded. "I am Princess Selene, rightful ruler of Zavia." The security team hesitated, their training conflicting with the unexpected appearance of their supposedly dead monarch. In that moment of uncertainty, Blue made his move, leaping forward with a roar that echoed through the docking bay, his massive form bowling over two guards. Ethan followed immediately, disarming a third guard while Nara engaged the fourth. Within seconds, all four were subdued but alive. "You serve the crown, not the general," Selene reminded them. "Xavier has committed treason. You can stand with me now or face judgment later." The captain of the security team slowly lowered his weapon. "The general told us you were assassinated by humans," he said, confusion evident in his voice. "As you can see, I am very much alive," Selene replied, "and this human saved my life rather than taking it." It was the first crack in Xavier's carefully constructed narrative. The captain nodded. "My family has served the royal house for 8 generations, Highness. If you say Xavier is a traitor, I believe you." With the security team now escorting, rather than opposing them, they made their way through the massive flagship toward the council chambers. News of Selene's presence spread rapidly, creating confusion and shifting loyalties throughout the vessel. Blue's presence created its own persuasion. The sight of a Vrex walking calmly beside a human, and the princess shattered preconceptions and forced reconsideration. They encountered resistance twice more, but each confrontation ended with more crew members joining their growing procession. By the time they reached the antechamber to the council room, they commanded a force of 30 loyal soldiers. "Xavier addresses the council now," their converted security captain reported, "finalizing the declaration of war." "Perfect timing for a resurrection," Selene said grimly. She turned to Ethan. "Ready to face the man who tried to kill us both?" "After you, princess," he replied with a soldier's grim humor. The massive doors to the council chamber slid open. Inside, General Xavier stood on the central platform, his imposing figure in full military regalia, addressing 24 Xavian counselors and, via holographic projection, the leaders of the Earth Coalition. "Demands justice for this unprovoked attack," Xavier was saying, his back to the entrance. "The assassination of Princess Selene by human infiltrators cannot—" "Cannot what, General?" Selene's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "Cannot be forgiven or cannot be proven because it never happened?" Xavier froze, his speech dying mid-sentence. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as he slowly turned to face the supposedly dead princess. "Impossible," he whispered, his carefully constructed world crumbling before his eyes. "Quite possible," Selene replied, striding forward with royal confidence. "Though you certainly tried your best to make it otherwise." Xavier's composure returned quickly, his military mind calculating new strategies even as his old ones failed. "Princess, thank the ancestors you survived. These humans," he gestured at Ethan, "they must have taken you hostage, forced you to—" "Enough lies," Selene cut him off. "The council has already received my transmission with evidence of your treason, the maze explosives, the mercenaries, the false declaration of my death, all orchestrated by you." Xavier's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Blue growled, stepping forward protectively. The general's eyes widened at the sight of the controlled Vrex. "Your own troops turned on you the moment they saw me alive," Selene continued. "How many would die for your ambition, Xavier? How many Xavian and human lives would you sacrifice for power?" For a moment it seemed Xavier might surrender. Then, with the desperation of a cornered predator, he lunged toward a control panel on the central platform. "If I cannot rule, no one will," he shouted, slapping his hand on a scanner. Alarm klaxons immediately blared throughout the chamber. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," the ship's automated system announced. 15 minutes to core detonation." Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Counselors rushed for exits while security forces surrounded Xavier, who laughed manically despite being subdued. "The abort codes," Selene demanded, rushing to the control panel. "Give them now." "Die with me, princess," Xavier spat, "or live knowing you led your people to destruction." Ethan assessed the situation with combat-honed clarity. The flagship's destruction would kill thousands and be seen as a coalition attack, he realized. War would be inevitable. Evacuation pods are launching, Nara reported, monitoring a secondary console. But we can't evacuate everyone in 15 minutes. Ethan examined the self-destruct system, recognizing the technology with shock. This is coalition-level encryption, he said, stolen or purchased from human traders. Can you override it? Celine asked urgently. Not without codes, Ethan replied. But maybe. He turned to Xavier, who was being restrained by 3 guards. The abort code would be something personal, something you wouldn't forget under pressure. Xavier's face remained impassive, but his eyes flickered toward a medallion he wore, a military service award with his identification number prominently displayed. His service number, Ethan guessed, studying the medallion, but modified somehow. Reversed, Celine suggested. Or doubled, Ethan said suddenly, remembering a similar protocol in coalition security systems. He turned to the console and quickly entered Xavier's service number, reversed and repeated. The klaxons immediately silenced, the countdown freezing before disappearing entirely. Self-destruct sequence aborted, the ship announced. Normal operations resuming. The tension dissolved into relief, officers returning to their stations with renewed purpose. Nara and loyal guards secured Xavier for later judgment. Princess, the communications officer called, we're receiving transmissions from multiple vessels, both Xavian and Earth Coalition. They're requesting clarification of our status. Celine straightened, the weight of leadership settling visibly onto her shoulders. Open a channel to all vessels, she commanded. It's time to end this crisis. The officer complied, and Celine stepped onto the command platform, her presence filling the view screen that would transmit her image to both fleets. This is Princess Celine of Xavia, speaking from the royal flagship. General Xavier has been removed from command due to treason against the crown and attempts to instigate unlawful aggression against the Earth Coalition. She paused, gathering the words that would shape the future. To all Xavian vessels, stand down from combat alert. Return to normal patrol patterns. Any aggressive action against Earth vessels will be considered direct violation of royal command. Celine glanced at Ethan, who nodded encouragement. To all Earth Coalition vessels, we regret the tensions created by General Xavier's actions. The Xavian Crown extends formal apology for any provocations. We request immediate diplomatic contact to resolve outstanding issues. The response was immediate. Acknowledgements from Xavian vessels and cautious but positive signals from the Coalition fleet. Coalition Command accepts your communication, Princess Celine, came the formal response from the human flagship. We are standing down from combat readiness and request a formal meeting. Agreed, Celine replied. Details to follow through diplomatic channels. When the transmission ended, she turned to Ethan, exhaustion finally showing through her royal composure. It seems we've averted a war. For now, he agreed. The real work begins with rebuilding trust. Blue nudged Celine's hand with his massive head, a gesture that seemed almost affectionate from the predator who had once been used to hunt humans for sport. She scratched behind his ears, earning a rumble of pleasure. Perhaps we've already begun, she said, looking from the wrecks to Ethan. 3 species that had no reason to trust each other, working together for survival. A model for bigger cooperation, Ethan suggested.